Soaring records being shattered around America and electric bills all likely to go up. All this, as Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid prepares to unveil new energy legislation that will include limits on offshore drilling and incentives for natural gas. One thing that won't be in the bill is a cap-and-trade provision, which has long been a part of the president's green agenda. Reid says he simply doesn't have enough votes to get it through. So have the Democrats really cooled on cap-and-trade for good, or are they just waiting for the right time to bring it back? Let's ask Chris Horner, author of Power Grab, How Obama's Green Policies Will Steal Your Freedom and Bankrupt America. And Nancy Skinner, radio host, also back with us. All right, let's go. Chris, I want to begin with you here. Do you think that cap and trade is completely off the table, or will they try to get it in by some other name?
Well, it's off the table before the election. There's no political will to do something about which the president accurately said it will cause your energy prices to, quote, necessarily skyrocket. And he said it on videotape, and they're having a hard time getting around that. So what John Kerry and Joe Lieberman, the two authors of the Senate bill, which has been abandoned for now, before the election, have openly said is they agree with the House. They need to pass something. We'll call it a Gulf spill response bill as they try to figure out what actually happened. Rush to legislate something that they can conference with cap and trade in the House and bring it back in a merged form after the election when John Kerry says some members may be feeling liberated and also be all auditioning to be the next ambassador to Bermuda. So look for after the election.
Yeah, and Nancy, you only got about 2 months after summer recess between that and the November elections. I mean, isn't it just too much of a political, pardon the pun, hot button issue to bring up?
Well, because, you know what, Brian, yes, it is. But it's because it's been demonized. Look, the word cap and trade, everyone focuses on cap. There's the trade part of this bill, and I wouldn't be surprised if after the elections, when it's not so easily demonized, that you don't see prominent Republicans and Wall Street getting behind this bill. Look, the guy who founded cap and trade in the 90s, he was a former Board of Trade president in Chicago, Richard Sandor. Yes, Richard Sandor. I helped him launch this. He is no bleeding heart liberal, trust me. And the idea is he was called the father of interest rate futures. The reason being is that there's something to trade. So Wall Street now is just under financial regulation, has lost some of their exotic instruments. There is great profit and innovation in the idea of capping and then trading and making a buck off of the trading part of it.
Expense?
So I think after the election, Wall Street will be on board. What does Wall Street care about the oil companies? Honestly, that's
Wall Street's been,
the oil companies lose,
Nancy,
everyone else wins.
Okay, your filibuster's over. I was in the room with Enron and Goldman and BP when they invented cap and trade. Your friend invented the Chicago Climate Exchange. Enron, BP, and Goldman invented carbon cap and trade in the 90s. And again, I was in the room, so I'm happy to discuss it. Of course Wall Street's behind this. When you rob Peter to pay Paul, you're guaranteed the enthusiastic support of Paul. And that's what's going on.
But Chris,
climbing up from under the rubble.
Again, shockingly, sort of agree with Nancy on this, which is a lot of the CEOs we've interviewed on Fox Business for power companies, they say we would like to have a price on carbon because we just don't know what it's going to cost us.
Right. You're interviewing the wrong CEOs. You're interviewing Exelon, Duke Energy, former Enron executive is a
American
CEO.
Electric Power. I mean, you don't think those are real? You don't think those are viable corporations?
Yeah. I do, and I detail in Power Grab interviews Mike Morris of AEP gave, and he said, of course this will cost us billions, but the beauty of it is, he said billions, we get to pass it through to the ratepayer with a little taste on top for ourselves. Again, you rob Peter to pay Paul, you have Paul's enthusiastic support. Exelon told Forbes magazine that they got to write the provisions that govern them, and they stand to make $1.1 to $1.5 billion in windfall every year off of ratepayers for doing nothing other than increasing the price of electricity. Obama's right, he wasn't lying.
Look at this, look at history. Where did cap and trade, if you want to go back, cap and trade came from the Clean Air Act, and it was in 1992. It was sulfur dioxide. It was first tested on with utilities. And back then, everybody said it would be $1,000 a ton to curb sulfur dioxide. Everyone was screaming Chicken Little. When they gave the market enough time and everyone was prepared for this, the first auction was $60 a ton. In other words, the power of innovation and people knowing that this is coming down the pipe, as Brian said, these executives knowing it, making the right capital investments worked.
But Nancy, is there, listen, even if we did it, let's say we did it, let's say they put it out there and it passes, aren't we going to be at a massive disadvantage because the growing nations, the BRIC countries of the world, are going to simply ignore it? You look at the most polluted cities in the world, they're not here. They're in China. They're in the countries that are still blowing smoke into the air and have all the factories running. We need them on board, right?
You know, but it's a red herring. Yes, there are two issues. There is the pollution issue, global pollution, and then there's a financial issue. When we start to, Germany and Japan have done well because they've invested in green technology. They had an industrial policy to get ahead of the curve, even though they don't really aren't ripe for it. So if we go ahead and do this, this is about green jobs and new industry, and China will follow. They will have to leapfrog technologies because it's cheaper and better, and they'll follow.
Chris and Nancy, listen, we're going to welcome you back on soon. We'll continue the discussion. Chris, I guarantee you next time we come back on, you'll get the first word. Good discussion. Chris Horner, Nancy Skinner, thank you both very much.
My favorite topic.
All right.